Tim's on my feet, stomping out the negativity. Everybody not a friend of me. Spread the love, still I move deliberately. Girly face on, but the smile be heavenly. Brooklyn girls, so they love the energy. Love sincerity, so I take the liberty to take them on a journey lyrically. Through hallways and alleys.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. As you can see, there's something a little different this week because it's just me on the screen, but I am your host, Minister Cat, aka Kitty Rose, and today we are joined by a special co-host, because our dear, beautiful Melissa D has strep throat. So we have another, I want to say, can I say, token white girl who's joining us today. So if you guys can bring and Skype her in, everyone, please introduce yourself, or let us be introduced to my wonderful new soul sister, Miss Pippa Hurst. Hey, Miss Pippa.
Hi, Ken.
How are you today, beautiful woman?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I am doing okay. Thank you so much for joining us at the last minute. This was literally like an hour ago. I called you and said, "Are you available?" And you were like, "Yeah." So thank you so much. But this week's shows actually was based on my meeting you this past weekend. Because one, I met you behind the scenes, but my meeting, we are Taurus sisters. We're a year and day apart. So we connected on so many levels because we're pretty much the same. You're just white and I'm just black.
So many levels.
Yes, so welcome to the next chapter. Today's topic we wanted to talk about, and I'm glad that you're here about this, is what is Black Wall Street? And the reason why I wanted to talk about it, well, one, have you ever heard of Black Wall Street?
No. Only thing I can think of when I think of Wall Street and black is the series Black Monday with Don Cheadle.
Okay, and that's not Black Wall Street.
That does anything.
But the reason why I wanted to have this conversation, and particularly with my white counterpart, i.e. now you, Pippa, is because when we met, you had discussed, or you shared with us, that you are living the nomadic lifestyle, which is kind of somewhat homeless, living in your car. And
right.
Someone asked you, if you were a black woman, would you be able to have or live this same lifestyle? And then when I asked you, because I'm nosy, how you live in this lifestyle, you expressed that, lightweight, you had a trust fund, or you have a trust fund. You're not necessarily a rich woman, but you had some money tucked away from your grandparents that you were kind of able to use to kind of get through those first few years. And it made me start thinking about this, again, concept or delusion that only white folks have XYZ. i.e. even money. Like, there's only white trust fund babies, that they're not ideas of any other cultures outside of the Caucasian one that can actually have trust fund babies or live on a trust fund. So that got me to start thinking about Black Wall Streets, because the Black Wall Streets were these cities and towns of influential and very well off Black folks that happened and lived right here in the United States. And because, again, the illusion of trying to keep us separate, we're not taught in the school system about these Black Wall Streets. And then when we are finally taught about it, we're taught about one black town in Tulsa. So I don't know, did you ever see or hear about the movie, which is ironic, John Cheadle was in that. John Cheadle from Black Monday is also in this movie. Have you ever heard of the movie Roswell or Roswell?
I think I may have, but I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, Roswell is John Cheadle's in this movie, and it's actually about the Tulsa town that was literally burnt up, and everyone in the town was damn near massacred and killed because of how influential this town or these Black folks were, independent from everyone else or independent from their white counterparts. So we get told that story, but we don't get told that there were many other cities in the United States, as well as the United States, where Black folks did have money and were able to in a generational way, pass down money and wealth to their children that were not of Caucasian descent.
Right.
And it got me to thinking that that's probably the case with other cultures as well. Like, it's not just black folks and white folks. Here, once again, we're always thinking that it's just these two entities, but I'm sure that there are Asian trust fund babies, there are Middle Eastern trust fund babies, there are trust fund babies or people with money in all these cultures. But in particular, since this is a white and black show, we're going to go to our dynamics. So I was able to find one video that kind of gave the information or detail to explain what Black Wall Streets, or what the concept of Black Wall Streets is about. Let's check it out.
The legacies of Black Wall Streets, it's important for people to remember, because there are so many people who have no idea that there were these vital, dynamic places where African Americans were living out their vision of the American dream, creating opportunity and hope and progress for their communities.
Beyond Tulsa was the name of this video, but it gave us the information that Tulsa was not the only Black Wall Street. The history of other such districts nationwide is still not widely known beyond their home cities, even though there were many. Chicago, Durham, North Carolina, Atlanta, Little Rock, Arkansas, Jackson, Mississippi. When I just recently went to Philly to the National Museum of Black History, I also learned about Black towns that was in Canada, where you're from, as well as I think up, not Arkansas, but some other like town, Kansas, that I wasn't familiar with. So here I named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cities, which I'm sure that there were more, but why do you think that we're not taught, or why do you think as an educated white woman that you're not taught about other entities or other cultures that also might have money? But before you answer that, what was your answer when the guy asked you, could a Black woman live the life that you're leading? And how did that even happen? Let's start with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to clarify, it's only recently that I have actually had money to do this.
Okay.
For the first 5 or 6 years, I was living on an average of about $17 US a day. So that did sort of force me into the nomadic lifestyle and living in other people's homes.
Okay.
But this came about because when I first became homeless and nomadic and decided to embrace the lifestyle, I sat in a diner in Toronto for 2 nights. And 9 hours each night I sat there. By the end of the second night, I was getting a free brownie and a coffee. And a young man sat down next to me on that second night, and I told him a bit about what I was doing. And he said to me, "Do you think you'd be having the same experience if you were Black?" And I had never really thought about it. And from my conversations on this podcast that I'm doing with my friends across America, the general consensus has been that no, they felt as Black people, they would not have been allowed to sit in a diner for that long, simply because of the color of their skin. So,
and how did that make you feel when that question was actually posed to you?
It completely opened me up to starting to look at life in a different way. And oddly enough, by chance, over those next 5 or 6 years, through all of my nomadic travels, my 250 moves, especially in and around the U.S., I was having chance encounters with people in the Black community and making a lot of friends in that community. So learning a little bit about the differences and about my privilege as a white person.
So when I came to you, when we recently met and asked you about, because you just said that recently you've only had a little bit of money to live on. That wasn't the case in the beginning. So how were you able to recently get this little bit of money?
Well, that's through a little bit of generational wealth. My mother died in 2020, and so I received a little bit of money from her estate, which is what is helping me do what I'm doing right now.
Okay. So did the idea or thought that, you know, outside of you sitting in a diner for 2 days and maybe a black woman not being able to do that, when it came to the disparity on economic level, did you think about, okay, well, yes, my, you know, unfortunately, my mother just made the transition and I'm able to live off of some of what she left me. But did it even think, or have you even thought the fact that other cultures or other races, and particularly the black race, does the same thing for their children?
Do you know, from what I've learned through either reading or taking courses in white privilege, my understanding is that generational wealth has been a lot more difficult for Black people and people of other colors other than white to generate for themselves for various reasons. So I was under the impression that that doing what I'm doing might be a little bit more difficult. Whether that's true or not, we did have that conversation, and you said, "Oh, I could see myself doing this," and I think that's awesome because I have had a few, especially younger people that I've met along the way, ask me, "How do you do what you're doing? And please tell me how I do this." And I want to know that I can convey to people of any race and any religion and any age that this is possible.
Yes.
And be coming from a place of honesty and truth, because I don't want to lead people astray either if it isn't possible.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. On that note, let's go to our PSAs.
Part-time job, full-time hustle, all-time hero to all of us. You nurture, we listen. You teach, we thrive. You lift our spirits, but we've got to lay down the truth. It's time for you, our Shiro, to stretch for the stars. A free online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Start saving more for retirement so you can feel prepared and live your life to the fullest. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
You know, a lot of people say, when you're going somewhere, you don't want to look back. But I beg to differ. For her to see her father celebrate his graduation, it's the best feeling in the world. I can't lie and say it was easy. But sometimes you just have to stop everything and take it in. I looked at everything in a different light. And I realized it started with me going back and getting my high school diploma.
So what I noticed that you mentioned about wanting to be able to share your experience with others so that others can know that they can do this outside of having a little bit of money or not. But those that have the little bit of money, what I noticed was, I think it takes courage is how you did it. And I believe that even when it comes to people who were building generational wealth for themselves and their families, that it was based on the idea of courage. It was based off the idea that I can do this. And so many times we are bogged down under, we can't do this. This is not for us. That only they do that. We're not able to do that. And then that is what the stereotype then, kind of like, stacks up to making people think that it's a one-sided type of lifestyle or view that you can actually live this type of way, because I think we also get so caught up and consumed by thinking that wealth equates money.
Right. I mean, I consider myself richer than most just because of the experiences I've had and what I've been able to do, even with very little money. I think for me, my concern would be racism, would just be the idea that it's limited for certain people because of response from the outside world. I've had a huge amount of support from all kinds of people offering me their homes, offering me, jobs, offering me a lot of different stuff, and I don't get bothered. If anything, I get helped, and I know that that's not always the case for people in other racial groups and other minorities. Is that fair to say?
I think it is fair to say. I think not only is it fair to say, but it also goes back to breaking down the myth of these opportunities. Because like you said, it's not just you out in the world, but it's also people receiving you into their homes. Because what is one of the way outside of being a writer that you actually do make a living?
I developed a pet and house sitting business along the way. So, I would go into people's homes and I would look after their animals, get a little bit of money, have a place to stay, and that's how I did it. But I've also had a lot of people like my friend Mac, who is actually episode 2 of the podcast I've been doing, help me out at Toronto Airport when I was there for 9 days straight, because I was just tired of moving around, not rely on other people anymore, didn't have a ton of money, and it was just a safe place to hang out. So I would sleep on a bench in one of the departure lounges, and then I'd hang out in the hotel lobbies from time to time. And at one point in the hotel lobby, I met my friend Mac, and he offered me his hotel room a couple of days while he was in flight, because he was a flight attendant, And Mac is a Black man.
Wow.
So, how many people do that? It doesn't matter what color you are, what race you are, what religion, I have met so few people in my life in these 250 moves and all of these hundreds of people I've met who have actually done that for me as a stranger. And he and I are still friends to this day. I love him. I went to see him at his new restaurant in North Carolina. So I think, again, breaking down stereotypes, these ideas we have of other people based on certain characteristics just are not true.
Right. And that was so much the reason why I wanted to discuss this concept, because I think that the life that you're leading, when I sat there and talked to you some more, I said, I can do that. I can live like that. Like, I totally can be a no man. You know what I'm saying? But then it was like, but then can I? And the reason why I can is because I've done the work to set my children up. So I have income coming in that already takes care of them. I have my insurance set up so that I don't have to do, no shade or disrespect, a GoFundMe when I make my transition. I'm now investing in different properties and investments so that I can not only have my Social Security or my retirement fund, but so that I can create opportunities for my children not to have to work so hard or still work hard. I learned something recently that I saw a video, and I should have put this video on, where Black people was on Hot 97, The Breakfast Club, and a guy was saying how the biggest myth that he's been taught about financial wealth was that, oh, damn, I can't even remember. But the point I wanted to remember is that he said that if you, as a parent, or just even as an adult, started, I want to say an IRA, but please, I could be being quoted wrong, so don't quote me, but the concept is the same. If you had a trust that you put in for your child, like they say is 13 or 14 years old. And he didn't say anything exorbitant price. I think it was like $100 or something. Dag, I wish I had this video. But he used the example that by the time that child now retires, or he's in his 50s, that they would have $1.2 million in their account.
Amazing.
Yes, and because recently I'm now doing my insurance, I'm having the same conversations because my children are very into money and finance and their credit and paying bills and building, I guess the right type of streamline so that they can go on vacation, buy cars, all of these things. So I'm like, okay, I wish I was doing that at 19, 18, 23, 22, 27, because if I started putting money away then I would have so much more money now at 48. But because that knowledge wasn't taught to me, when my mother told me that now my insurance was up for me to pay, I thought it was something that you just started paying for when you got old, you know what I'm saying, and for retirement or for your burial. I didn't realize that was a way that can build up collateral or money or wealth for yourself. So there it goes back to the whole premise of like, the concept of, can Pippa only live like this? You know what I'm saying? Because your parents or your mother, set certain things or put certain things in place. No, not that she was wishing, okay, when I die, I want my daughter to just be homeless around the world. You know what I'm saying? But still, it was still to protect you for whatever aspirations you wanted to do while you were still here, that she worked her whole life for. Or am I wrong?
No, yeah, no, it's not. It didn't play out exactly like that. And as I said, the 5.5 years that I was homeless and nomadic initially, it was all just me, figuring it out as I went along on that roughly average of $70 US a day. So, my mom wasn't even in my life at that point. with a number of reasons. But so, yeah, it's just it's the interesting idea of this generational wealth and whether it applies solely to white people. My understanding of it, based on what I've learned and the research I've done, is that it is much more common among white people to have that kind of generational wealth and to be able to create that for themselves. You know, and that communities have been literally put underwater, Black communities, so that they are not able to create that generational wealth. And then there are no reparations that are being given or money that's being given to help these people continue to build when they're forced to rebuild or relocate or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, we could get into redlining and all those things that prevent, if they create barriers that are, and it makes it 10 times more difficult for certain people to create that generational wealth.
Right. And I think that is a myth that it can only happen in the white race, because the other myth to generational wealth being in the white race is that they're not poor white people. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the...
No, I agree with that. When I was walking around DC in the early days of this, it was 2016, right before Trump was elected, I met a fascinating woman walking around DC, gay Black woman in her 50s. She and I talked about racism. We talked about the presidency and Obama and all these things. And where was I going with this? And I said
that they're not poor, that they're not poor white people.
Yeah, two people had approached me at the subway station there and asked me for money. And I didn't have any money. I was living on $17 a day. I just bought myself a new pair of shoes because I was walking a lot. So maybe that was the misconception there, or maybe it was because I was white. I don't know. But I was asked for money, and she said, "Oh, you've never seen a beggar before, or something," was the word she used. And I said, "Oh yeah, I've been asked for money before." And then she said something about how she's never really met very many poor white people, but she does know there are poor white people. So, you know,
she didn't meet a white person that said, "I ain't got no money."
I might look like I do. I still present myself fairly well when I'm out and about and doing things. So, you know, the assumption is made that we make assumptions based on appearance, right? About financial status, about our sexuality, about all kinds of things, just based on looking.
Right. So there's we're at the part of the show that we've had this beautiful conversation, but now we need like a Jesus moment. You know, what's our wrap up? What's our like from both of us having this conversation? Obviously, we can't save the world in one conversation, but what could we give to people to talk about the disparity, the stereotypes, the myth? What's your come to Jesus moment about how you feel about the concept of Black Wall Street or the concepts of Black Wall Streets?
I just feel like more needs to be done to not only change that stereotype, but also to assist certain communities who I still am not sure there's a fair playing field. Let's put it that way. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, because our wrap up or our Jesus moments don't always come with an answer. Our wrap up or Jesus moment just can give us a seed to plant to think about. So my wrap up or my Jesus moment was, again, you know, this blur or this deception of having us fall into the traps of stereotypes, fall into the trap of what the masses wants us to think about, to keep us separate, to keep us ignorant, rather than actually doing the research and doing the work to find out that these myths are actually untruth, because then it'll take off the idea that you can't do it. It'll take off the idea that this is unreachable. You know what I'm saying? The life that Pippa is leading. Can anyone do this that had the courage and confidence to do what she's doing? I say yes. Can anyone create generational wealth? With the information about money, with the information about finance, with the information about investing. Can anyone do that from any culture? Yes. Have we done that? Yes. So it's really about taking ownership of knowledge so that we do not continue to walk around in ignorance. So now we're at the other part of the show that's not one of our favorites, but it's a necessity, where we ask all of you guys to like, follow, and share. This is a community program, and it's shared, or it's helped or assisted by community efforts from you. So we need the support of the community to help us grow so that we can continue to get messages like these, breaking down stereotypes, breaking down myths, so that we could really come to a place that we can live our best lives. There is so much death around us right now. It is imperative that we live our life to the fullest, because we are not promised tomorrow. And if we can live a nomadic life and be happy, I'm looking at Miss Pippa. She don't look hungry, she don't look dirty, and she don't look unhappy.
Been some of the best years of my life, I'll tell you that much.
You said the best years of your life have been the last 9. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
and a lot of it has come from meeting people like you, honestly. I mean,
Amen. Amen. And you know what's funny? Because that's the next chapter in Miss Pippa's life, is the lifestyle that she's leaving now, being the white savior hope. But using her platform and the people that she's meeting to break down these stereotypes and unite us as a people. So
yes, bring people together.
Yeah, so I thank you so much for joining us this week, Miss Pippa. Thank you for being the token white girl and replacing Melissa D.
I'm so happy to be your white friend.
Oh my goodness. Everyone, please don't forget to subscribe to our channels. Check out Pippa's podcast. She has, 15 episodes right now on all the podcast channels: Apple, SoundCloud, Speaker, all that good shit, YouTube. Check her out, see the interesting conversations that she's having right now as a white woman traveling the world, interviewing, it seems to be predominantly black people, but I think it's people in general. But even if it is predominantly black people, let's see why she's talking to black people. Let's check her out. So check out her podcast. And once again, thank you. She'll be joining us back next week as well, so stay tuned. Once again, I'm your host, Minister Kat, aka Kitty Rose. I am joined today by Pippa Hurst. And we are the next chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. Until next week, continue to be safe and focused out there. All right, guys, good night. Thank you again.
Program to survive. Legendary ciphers get the MCs in the jobs. The city never sleeps. Slept from 1 to 5 when COVID hit the block and we had to stay inside. Tough love is all I know, so be gentle with my soul. Learn to navigate winters with no coat. If you never been cold, you never been broke. Hustle 24/7 just to stay afloat. So New York, like dollar pizza in that cold world shit. That real life break from the heart of the city is as hard as it gets. This that New York shit. That real life break from the heart of the city is as hard as it gets. This that New York shit. That real life grit from the heart of the city is as hard as it gets.